Something is happening now, not tomorrow, not next month, right now as you watch this. A celestial configuration that hasn't formed in approximately 50 years is active, and it's directed in a very specific way toward Virgo, not toward all signs, toward Virgo. And the thing that intrigues me most about this isn't what this cycle might bring, it's what Virgo will do with it, because Virgo has a pattern she developed over a lifetime of observing, analyzing, and improving everything around her. And this pattern, which is a genuine gift when directed towards the world, transforms into something completely different when she turns it inward. You probably think you know what it's like to be a Virgo, or if you are a Virgo, you think you know who you are. That perfectionism explains everything. That analysis is identity. And there's a reasonable chance that what you call who I am is just the version of you that survived, the version that learned to function, the version that gets the job done, and does it so well that the world forgot to ask how it's doing on the inside. But there is another version, one that this 50-year cycle is, for the first time in this lifetime, making truly accessible. What this video will reveal isn't about astrology in the way you know it. It's about an internal mechanism that Virgo operates without realizing it, and about what happens when she stops operating this mechanism in the dark and starts operating with her eyes open, with clarity, with the wholeness that she has always known how to build in others and that she is waiting to build in herself. Stay, because what comes next will make sense in a way you didn't expect. There's one thing the world has decided about Virgo, and decided with such conviction that it's become almost a biological fact. That Virgo is a perfectionist, that she analyzes everything, that she notices the mistake before noticing the beauty, that she is demanding, detail-oriented, sometimes difficult, and you know what's strange? Virgo herself believes it. She embraced this label as if it were a faithful mirror, as if it were the most honest explanation of who she is. Perfectionist. As if that word encompassed everything. But what if that mirror is only showing the surface? Because there's something nobody talks about regarding Virgo. Something happening right now, at this exact moment in the astronomical calendar, that hasn't happened in about 50 years. A celestial configuration that activates, not pressures, not forces, but activates, is a mechanism that most Virgos have never fully allowed to function in this life. And whoever understands what this mechanism is and what it's opening up now won't leave here the same way. But before talking about what's happening out there in the sky, we need to talk about what's happening inside. Because Virgo, before any astronomical configuration, is a laboratory. A living system of constant observation. It doesn't experience reality as others do. It processes it. It observes, collects, categorizes. It takes a situation and in silence assembles and disassembles it until it understands how it works. Not because it's anxious, not because it distrusts everything, but because it sees what could be, and that doesn't leave it in peace. Think of an art restorer. Not someone who creates something new from scratch, but someone who looks at an old painting, covered in layers of darkened varnish and accumulated time, and sees beneath it all the original work. The painting the artist intended to create. The restorer doesn't invent, he reveals. And to do that, he needs patience, precision, an ability to see beyond what's on the surface. He needs to believe before any tool that what's inside is worth the effort to find. That the work exists, that it's just hidden. Virgo does this with everything, with work, with relationships, with conversations, with situations that seem simple, but that she perceives as having something misaligned, something that isn't in its right place. She sees the hidden potential beneath what exists. She sees what the environment could be, what the person could be, what the project could be. And this perspective isn't arrogance, it isn't impatience, it's almost a form of love. The love of someone who believes that things can be better than they are. And that gaze is an extraordinary gift, but it comes at a price, because that same gaze, so precise, so refined, she also turns upon herself, and then the whole thing changes completely. When Virgo looks at the work of others, she sees the potential. She sees what can be improved, yes, but she also sees what is working. She can separate the two. But when she turns that gaze upon herself, something inside her decides that the yardstick changes, that the standard changes, that what she does is never good enough, that she could have done better, that there is always a more refined version that she failed to deliver. The gaze that liberates in others condemns in herself. Do you know what the most accurate image for this is? A brilliant doctor. Someone who spends all day reading symptoms with clinical precision, who makes diagnoses that other professionals miss, who has an analytical capacity that borders on the extraordinary, and who, when she herself feels pain, when something inside her isn't right, thinks she's exaggerating, that it's not that serious, that she should be able to solve it on her own, that others need care. She doesn't. She has to cope. Do you recognize this pattern? Because it is precisely here that the cycle that is happening now begins. And it is precisely here that the question this entire piece of content will attempt to answer arises. If Virgo can read everything with such precision, why is she so harsh on what she reads in herself? What is at the heart of this? Keep that question in mind for a second, because it doesn't have an easy answer, and no quick answer will do justice to what lies beneath. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path, that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose. It's not a book about astrology in the sense you know it. It won't tell you what will happen. It will show you how Virgo works internally with a depth that most content only scratches the surface of. It deals with what happens when Virgo learns to use its own perspective as an ally, not as a judge, as a tool for real clarity and not self-condemnation. At a time like this, with the cycle that is currently active, having this kind of understanding about oneself is not a luxury. It's what will determine whether she goes through this opening or observes it from the outside, as she has so often done with good things that have come her way. You are now in a very specific state, recognizing a pattern, feeling that discomfort of someone who has just seen something they would rather not see. This is exactly the right moment to act, not when the emotion passes, not when you are sure, but now, with this discomfort still active, because it is this that will make the reading truly sink in. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments, is there an area of your life where you apply a standard of expectation to others that you've never applied to yourself with kindness? It doesn't have to be a grand confession, just an honest observation. So, 50 years. Imagine a lock that's been there for decades. A door that's always been there, that you've always known was a door, that you've even run your hand over the wood a few times. But it never fully opened because the key never fit at the right angle. It's not that the key was wrong, it's not that the door was blocked, it was the angle, it was the timing. Sometimes the universe works like that, not out of cruelty, not by chance, but because certain openings require a specific level of maturity to avoid being wasted. And right now, that's the angle. For Virgo, this door is about transmutation, not about changing behavior. Virgo already knows how to change behavior, has mastered that. She adapts, she adjusts, she refines how she acts. It's about something deeper, a change of level, about the ability to operate from a place within herself that she has protected so much for so long that she almost forgot it was there. A place where analysis coexists with trust, where precision doesn't exclude peace, where knowing doesn't have to cost rest. But to enter through that door, Virgo needs to let go of something, And this is where things get difficult, because what she needs to let go of isn't a bad habit. It's not a toxic relationship. It's the weight of everything she's taken on as if it were her responsibility, and which it never was from the beginning. If there's a nearly universal pattern in Virgo, it's this. She absorbs. She sees other people's problems, and even before thinking, is already processing the solution. She sees what's misaligned in an environment, in a relationship, in a team, and automatically starts working to realign it. Not because she was asked, not because it's a formal obligation, but because her gaze cannot ignore what is out of place. It never could. It's like asking someone who sees in color why she noticed the wrong shade. She doesn't choose to notice. She simply sees. And over the years, sometimes decades, she accumulates burdens that aren't hers, responsibilities she assumed without signing anything, expectations she created for herself because she saw that no one else would take care of them. In many relationships, she became the problem solver, the fixer, the one who thinks of the detail everyone else forgot. And she did it with genuine competence, not as a form of self-sacrificing, but because that's how she works, because she sees what can be done and simply does it. The lasting image is this: a baggage handler, extraordinarily skilled, extraordinarily efficient. She carries everyone's bags with impressive competence. She knows exactly how to stack them, how to distribute the weight, how to fit more than seems possible. And her bags remained on the floor, not because they were abandoned, not because she forgot about them, but because there were so many other people's bags to carry that hers kept getting postponed, always postponed. And the cycle that's happening now is pointing to that ground. It's telling Virgo with a clarity she can no longer ignore, look here, these suitcases, they're yours. This image of the suitcases, it's unsettling because it's true in a way that few astrological labels can be. And what the heavens are doing now is creating a gentle but constant pressure for Virgo to look at what's left on the floor. Not to punish themselves for leaving it there, but to finally pick it up and discover what was inside all along. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose has an entire section on precisely this absorption mechanism, on how Virgo builds responsibility from the inside out, how this pattern takes hold, and how it can be redirected without losing what is genuine and powerful in this capacity to care. It's the kind of reading that doesn't say, stop caring about others. It says, with surgical precision, where the line is. And Virgo needs that line now, while that window is open and the cycle is pushing everything to the surface. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. To Virgo, letting go of something that isn't hers will seem irresponsible. It will sound like carelessness, like abandonment. She'll look at the bag on the floor and hear the voice saying, "But what if no one else picks it up?" And that voice isn't paranoid, it's fair, because it's often true that no one else will pick it up. And then Virgo finds herself in a dilemma she's never fully verbalized. If I don't take care of it, what happens? And if I continue to take care of it, what happens to me? This is the most unsettling paradox she will have to navigate in this cycle. Caring for herself with the same attention she gives to others is not selfishness. It's balance. It's what makes her self-care sustainable, real, and profound. Because when Virgo is exhausted, when her inner laboratory finally shuts down due to lack of energy, what she delivers to the world is a diminished version of herself. And she feels it. She senses when she's functioning at her limit. And yet, she continues. But you have another paradox here that is equally disturbing. And it's perhaps the most difficult to name because it's so ingrained that it seems normal. Virgo builds extraordinary things, solve problems that others didn't even realize existed, work with a precision that seems almost superhuman at times. And from within, From inside her, where no one sees, where she spends the early hours reviewing what she's done, everything always seems incomplete, always a little short, always with a better version left behind, with a smarter choice she could have made, with a speech that could have been more precise, kinder, more efficient. How can someone so competent feel like they've never quite made it? The image that answers this is that of a watchmaker. Someone who spends years building watches of extraordinary precision, watches that function perfectly, that people wear and trust with their lives, that tell time without fail. And this watchmaker looks at each watch that comes off her workbench and sees what could have been different, the fit that could be smoother, the mechanism that could rotate with a millimeter more play, the finish that could have received an extra hour of attention. She's not wrong, these details exist, but they don't compromise the watch. The watch works. The watch is extraordinary. The watch is, in the eyes of anyone who understands watchmaking, a work of art. And the watch on her wrist, the one she never had time to build for herself, the one left for later along with the suitcases, that one she never looks at. Not because I don't want her to, but because it's always too late, and there's always another watch to finish. The incompleteness that Virgo feels is not a sign that something is wrong with her. It's the nature of her gaze, a gaze that always sees beyond what exists, that sees the next step before finishing the current one, that is never completely satisfied, because being completely satisfied would mean failing to see the potential. And this gaze is exactly what makes her who she is. It's the engine, not the flaw. The question, and this is the question that the current cycle is highlighting, is how it transforms this engine into propulsion instead of wear and tear. Because there's a huge difference between using that perspective to move forward and using that perspective to always remain at an emotional starting point, always in the position of someone who is on their way but never arrived. That distinction is too subtle to be made from within the established pattern. It requires something external to help see it. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose specifically addresses what happens when Virgo learns to use their own perception to their advantage instead of against themselves. Not with generic self-help techniques, but with a real understanding of how the Virgo mind works, where its blind spots are, where it indulges without realizing it, and what happens when it finally stops treating itself as a draft. In a cycle like the current one, where everything is being reconfigured, this understanding can be the difference between crossing that 50-year window or closing it without entering. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And this is where the current cycle shows what it truly came to do. Because transmutation, the right word for what is available to Virgo now, isn't about becoming someone else. It's not about abandoning who she is and becoming someone lighter, more relaxed, less analytical. That's not it. Virgo won't and shouldn't stop seeing what's out of place. That's part of who she is. That's part of her gift. Transmutation isn't an identity swap. It's a change of altitude. Think of a diamond. It doesn't need to be cut to become a diamond. The structure is already there, formed over time and pressure, hard and precise by nature. No tool creates the diamond. The tool only reveals what was already inside. But when light hits it at the right angle, facets appear that no one knew existed, reflections that the stone never displayed before. Not because they weren't part of it, they were, but because the angle had never been that way before. The cycle that is happening now is this light. It is not creating something new in Virgo. It is impacting facets that have always existed, but which were protected, sometimes by conscious choice, sometimes by real necessity, sometimes because the right moment simply hadn't arrived yet. And Virgo, which understands systems, which understands conditions and context, should know better than any other sign. Sometimes it is the external condition that changes everything. Not because matter has changed, because the light has changed, and what these facets reveal is this: beneath the analysis, there is intuition. Beneath the criticism, there is care. Beneath the demands, there is love. A love that Virgo rarely names as such, because for her, loving seems more like fixing, improving, making things work. But it is love. It is one of the most laborious and honest forms of love that exists. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose functions as a map, not of the future, but of the inner self. It shows how Virgo is structured internally, where its genuine strengths lie, and where the patterns it created to protect itself now limit what it can achieve. In a cycle of transmutation like the current one, such a map is not optional. It is what will guide the journey and ensure that what it finds on the other side is what it has truly sought its entire life. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. If Virgo can read everything with such precision, why is she so hard on herself? The answer this cycle brings is not an easy one. It's not because you were conditioned that way, or because you're afraid of being disappointed. Those things may be true, but they don't get to the core. And Virgo, who isn't satisfied with shallow answers about anything, shouldn't be satisfied with a shallow answer about herself. The core of it is this: Virgo is hard on herself because she knows, more than any other sign, how different things can be. She sees the potential. And when that potential is herself, when the object of analysis is her own life, her own work, her own ability, the distance between what she is now and what she knows she could be seems unbearable to carry. Not because she is cruel, but because she sees with far too much clarity. And here is the thing that the 50-year cycle came to teach, and perhaps the most difficult of all for Virgo to accept. This distance is not a problem to be solved. It is not a flaw in the system that needs fixing. It is the space where she grows. It is the place where transmutation happens. It is the creative tension that has produced everything extraordinary she has ever done in life. The difference now is that she no longer has to carry that tension alone, and she no longer has to turn it into punishment. Virgo, with all its precision, with all its inner laboratory, with all its capacity to see what could be, is, of all the signs, the most equipped to inhabit that space between what is and what can be, with wisdom, with intentionality, with the same mercy that it has always been able to offer when the object was not itself. The photographer who spent her entire life mapping the world finally stopped. She's looking at the map, and she's found, right in the center, the point where she herself is. It wasn't an empty place. It wasn't a lost spot in the middle of nowhere. It was the richest place on the map. It was where everything began. She just had never had, until now, the window, the light, and the courage to look at it all at once. This is the gift that this cycle brings to Virgo. Not a dramatic turn of events, not a revelation that falls from the sky like a bolt of lightning, but the possibility, real, concrete, available now, in that cycle that hasn't repeated itself for 50 years, of finally becoming the object of the same care she has always been able to offer, of applying to herself the same restorative gaze that she has applied to everything she has touched. And for someone who has always taken care of everything except herself, this is the most radically different thing that can happen, and perhaps also the most deserved.